I was stunned by what my cheating wife had been doing behind my back. But now she was broken, she wept, realizing the full weight of the consequences for her betrayal. When the truth becomes a weapon, and old wounds are the only legacy left, the hero faces a choice: fight for his daughter, or let go of everything that once seemed important. What do you do when the past comes back to shatter the illusion of a happy life? My wife Melanie was in London again, shopping. Every year, she spent more and more time away from home. We no longer lived as a couple, but I couldn't afford to divorce her, and she didn't want to file for divorce either. Over the past 5 years, my software development company had really taken off. For more than 10 years, I struggled just to stay afloat, but then hardware technology finally caught up with my software package, and everything started to improve. 3 major companies showed interest, and I was just waiting for the right one to make a move. The real value of the company now exceeded 10 million, mostly in shares I owned. About 8 years ago, Melanie worked at a law firm in Reading. Back then, her salary was a big help. She worked long hours and eventually went on several business trips for the firm, even though she was just a legal assistant. I was busy with the new software, so I didn't pay much attention to her absence. Up until then, everything was fine between us. Our intimate life was great, and it seemed like we spent a lot of time together, enjoying each other's company, despite my irregular work hours. After about a year at the law firm, the intimacy pretty much disappeared, and our life together became almost platonic. I was unhappy with the situation, but I was convinced it was just a phase she was going through. We had 2 kids in high school. For the most part, they took care of themselves. Bradley was getting ready to go to Penn State, and Jack dreamed of joining the Marines. Melanie's boss at Burke's Legal was Robert Logan. I met him several times with his wife at corporate events, and he seemed like a normal guy. One day, Melanie came home very upset and told me that Robert had been murdered, his wife had shot him. She didn't want to go into details, but soon after, she quit and never worked again. Our marriage didn't get any better. She became gloomy and argumentative. I wish I could say she had some positive qualities or redeeming traits, but I can't. I tried to avoid her as much as possible, but it was hard. To make matters worse, she was pregnant. I hoped the new baby would improve things at home, but it didn't. Melanie named our daughter Brenda. She adored the girl and was always attentive to her, but our relationship kept deteriorating. When Brenda grew older, Melanie started spending even more time away from home. The company was making money, so we moved to a new house with household staff. Melanie had a live-in nanny for Brenda, and she took full advantage of that. I never asked where she went or why. I just knew the expenses were high. Luckily, I was making money faster than she could spend it, but even so, I felt frustrated. I tried to talk to her and figure out what had happened between us, but she refused. Of course, having separate bedrooms didn't help. I had no idea what I'd done wrong, so I didn't know how to fix things. In the end, I just gave up. A divorce would cost me a couple $1,000,000 and probably destroy my new company. It bothered me that I'd let things get to this point. I had my own lawyers, but still couldn't see a good way out. Brenda was turning into a lovely young girl. I spent as much time with her as I could. Melanie usually kept us apart, but since she traveled so much, Brenda and I became good friends, something Melanie didn't know about. It was our secret, and Brenda liked it. She was in 3rd grade and doing well in school. I attended parent-teacher meetings and conferences. Melanie was usually busy with other important matters. Bradley and Jack were living on their own and doing well. My marriage was a failure, but the kids made up for it. And then, one day, I got lucky. Linda Logan was sitting in my office, waiting for me. I was surprised to see her. I thought she was in prison for her husband's murder. She looked well. Her hair fell to her shoulders, a soft blend of gray, silver, and a touch of black. She wore almost no makeup, and her skin looked delicate and smooth, though not soft. Her eyebrows were natural and fit her face perfectly. She had a look that was both strong and feminine. Linda, this is, to say the least, a surprise. You look good. Thank you, Gary. I wasn't sure you'd remember me. It's been 8 years, and I figured by now everyone would have forgotten. Would you like some coffee? Black would be great. Linda, I'm in a very awkward position. Of course I know about your situation, and I don't want to say anything that might upset you. If I say or do something inappropriate, please don't hesitate to correct me. I've spent the last 8 years in prison, Gary. I'm pretty used to all this by now. Don't worry about my feelings. By the way, how is Mrs. Foster? I'd rather not talk about that. Let's just say things could be better. I'm sorry, but that's actually why I'm here. I need to talk to you about Melanie. I'm not bitter, and I'm not looking for revenge, but there are certain things I think need to be settled. I set the cup of coffee in front of her, but sat down in a chair next to my desk, not behind it. I wanted to hear what she had to say, and I wanted her to feel comfortable saying it. I pressed the intercom button and asked my secretary not to disturb us. Gary, did you follow the trial? No. Melanie mentioned what happened, but I wasn't very interested. I was busy launching the business, and she wasn't very communicative at the time. I guess she was affected by his death. I think more than you can imagine. It seems you have no idea what really happened, so a lot of things are going to surprise you. You said you didn't want to upset me. Well, I feel the same way. I'm going to tell you things that won't be pleasant to hear. If it gets to be too much, just tell me and I'll stop. Maybe we should have had whiskey instead of coffee. We both smiled slightly. The day I shot Robert, he was planning to leave me and run off with Melanie. Robert only came home to hand me the divorce papers. Your wife was waiting for him in the car. They were planning to come see you after they were done with me. I'd known about their affair for a while. I had documents and some photos. The fact that he wanted a divorce didn't bother me, because I was planning on it too. Linda, I had no idea. Back then, I was living in my own little world. I guess, in a way, it's my fault things turned out like this. I'm sorry my failings as a husband contributed to the problems in your marriage. There was something else, Gary. Robert always wanted a family, but we couldn't have kids. He was always complaining about my shortcomings as a wife and blaming me for everything. When he handed me the divorce papers, he told me Melanie was pregnant with his child, and that she would give him the family he'd always dreamed of. I turned away and started to walk off, but he kept insulting me, calling me all sorts of humiliating things. It wasn't enough for him to just leave and divorce me, he had to make me feel like I wasn't even a person anymore. It seemed like he was never going to stop yelling at me, and in the end, I just couldn't take it anymore. I took the revolver out of the sideboard drawer and shot him. I don't even remember how I did it. Are you saying my daughter Brenda is Robert's child? Brenda isn't Robert's daughter, but I think Melanie believes she is. Can you explain? I had several tests done. The doctors didn't find anything wrong with me. Eventually, I had Robert's sperm analyzed, and it turned out he was completely sterile. I never told him. By the way, Brenda is Robert's mother's name. I guess they agreed on that name when Melanie found out she was pregnant. Melanie picked the name, but I had no idea where she got it from. But I think you're right, she believes Brenda is Robert's child. Knowing that, a lot of things start to make sense. Do you want more coffee? No, but there's something else I need to discuss with you. Are you sure you have time? Everything's fine. Don't worry. That's one of the perks of being the boss. When I went to prison, everything in the house was put into storage, including Robert's briefcase. Last week, I went through it and found this. Linda handed me the original divorce papers that Melanie had planned to give me the day Robert was killed. The documents were signed, dated, and notarized. Since Robert and Melanie worked at a law firm, the terms of the divorce were written with meticulous precision. Is this still valid? Linda laughed. I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer. Look at clause number 7. She grants me full custody of all children. Wow, she'd lose her mind if she knew I could get Brenda. Sure, the boys have been gone for a while, but if I get custody of her little angel, she'll go crazy. Can I take this so my lawyers can look it over? It's yours, Gary. It means nothing to me. I wish you luck. Here are a few more things you might find interesting, or maybe not. Linda handed me 2 manila envelopes. The photos my detective took are in the small envelope. They're pretty explicit. I don't need them, but maybe they'll be useful to you. The large envelope has the results of the investigation my private detective gave me, along with some other interesting documents. You can look through them and decide what matters to you. Thank you. Honestly, I don't want to see them, but I'll give everything to my lawyer along with the papers. We sat there looking at each other for a few minutes. She was a very impressive woman, and I was glad she'd come to see me. I'd better get going and let you get back to work. Thanks for seeing me. I feel a lot better now that I've closed the book on these loose ends. By the way, you wouldn't happen to have any openings for exkins, would you? Mark Sullivan, my personal, and favorite, attorney, was thrilled with the 8-year-old divorce papers that had no expiration date. He looked like a kid in a candy store and couldn't wait to get started. Melanie wasn't asking for any percentages, just specific amounts. She wanted $14,000 from the checking and savings accounts. That was about half the total 8 years ago, but these days it was almost nothing. Everything else was along the same lines. There was just one catch: she wanted the family Volvo from 1995, which belonged to her back then. I'd sold it about 5 years ago. Now I had to track down that car. Linda Logan started working in the company's software testing department. It was an entry-level position, but I had a feeling she'd be comfortable there. Plus, it gave me a chance to see her regularly. I liked Linda, and I hoped to get to know her better. Brenda and I didn't tell Melanie about our DNA tests. The results would be ready in a few weeks, but Mark needed time to make sure there were no legal loopholes in the divorce papers. I was convinced the results would prove Brenda was my daughter. With a little help from friends at the DMV, I managed to track down the family Volvo in State College. Some fraternity kid was happy to sell it to me for twice what he'd paid. A week later, I had a new title in Melanie's name. Mark explained that as long as nothing was changed in the original divorce filing, it could be finalized just as it was written. We didn't find anything serious enough to want to change. Melanie's signature was notarized and still valid, even after 8 years. I signed the document on my end, and Mark's notary sealed it. Now all we could do was wait. Time passed very slowly. My relationship with my wife wasn't getting any better. My relationship with my daughter, on the other hand, grew stronger every day. And so did my relationship with Linda Logan. About a month later, I convinced Linda to have lunch with me one day outside of work. It was pleasant, no strings attached, and I assured her I wouldn't do anything that might make other employees think I was interested in her. She replied that her relationship with me was more important than her job. I had a feeling things were going to get better, but I wasn't in any rush. Over the next few weeks, I tried several times to talk to Melanie about our marriage. She refused to discuss it or even answer my questions. I didn't tell her that her divorce petition was being reviewed and that she'd soon be notified of the final decision. It was midweek, right in the middle of the day, when my dear wife Melanie burst into the office. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, throwing some official-looking papers onto my desk. "I'm not sure, but I think your divorce petition, filed 8 years ago, just got approved. You son of a bitch. You can't do this. Everything's changed since then, and if you think I'm going to let you get away with this crap, you're crazy." "And what's changed, dear? The fact that your lover is dead doesn't mean we can't go through with the divorce. I agreed to all your terms, so you have no grounds to protest. I suggest you hire a lawyer if you want to contest the divorce. In the meantime, I want you to pack up all your things from my house, the one you gave me. I'll be happy to leave your house and take care of this piece of shit." She waved the divorce notice. "You're going to pay for this, and you'll pay dearly. Brenda and I are leaving this afternoon, and tomorrow I'll send someone to get my things. I'm sorry, dear, but if you read Clause 7, you'll see you granted me full custody of Brenda. Until that's resolved, she stays with me. If you try to take her without my permission, I promise you'll be arrested. At that moment, Melanie was furious. She wasn't talking, she was shouting. The muscles in her neck were tight, and the veins on her forehead were bulging. Her lips trembled every time she spoke. For the next minute, I didn't even hear what she was saying. I just sat there, stunned by her rage. Finally, she grabbed the papers and stormed out. The silence and peace were wonderful. I sat back, completely relaxed and relieved, as my secretary brought me a cup of coffee. She didn't say anything, just smiled. I spent the rest of the day canceling cell phones, credit cards, bank accounts, and insurance policies. I called Linda, and she agreed to have dinner that night with Brenda and me. I needed a friendly shoulder to lean on. Most of the evening, Brenda and Linda spent talking to each other. Everything turned out differently than I'd planned. Mark called me a few days later. Melanie had hired a lawyer, and a meeting had been scheduled to settle the divorce issues. A family court judge would be present to act as an arbitrator. Mark noted that Melanie's lawyer didn't seem very confident about being able to overturn the divorce decision, but he was much more interested in getting me to give up custody of Brenda as part of the settlement. I was willing to compromise, but not to give in. The meeting started slowly and was mostly spent going over each of the claims Melanie had made in her divorce petition. Mark handed over the checks for the agreed amounts, and we sat in silence, patiently listening to the formal protests about the supposed unfairness of the agreements. Mark didn't respond to any of them. Melanie looked surprised when I slid the car keys and the Volvo's documents across the table to her. Finally, the subject of custody came up. Melanie asked the judge for permission to make a statement, which was granted. For the past 8 years, I forced myself to stay in a loveless marriage for the sake of my daughter. I loved Robert Logan with all my heart, and I was proud to give him the child his wife never could. Robert Logan is my daughter's father, not Gary Foster. Mr. Foster has no right to Brenda, and I will not allow the daughter of the man I love to be raised by a stranger. That's why I'm requesting sole custody of Brenda Foster. The judge, who had remained silent throughout the proceedings, finally spoke. Mrs. Foster, are you stating that Brenda Foster is the result of an extramarital relationship you had with Robert Logan while you were married to Gary Foster? Yes, Your Honor. The way you put it sounds a bit humiliating, but Robert Logan and I were lovers and soulmates. We never felt like we were doing something as sordid as committing adultery. We were planning, or just starting, our life together when the tragedy happened. Brenda is the proof of our love, and I don't want Mr. Foster to have any contact with her. Your admission in this matter, in most cases, would reduce your chances of obtaining custody due to marital infidelity. However, if what you say is true, we may have to reconsider our decision. The judge looked at Mark. Do you have anything to say? Mark and I exchanged glances. Are you sure you want to do this, Gary? Yes. Let's do it. My attorney handed a sheet of paper to Melanie's lawyer. This is a report prepared about 6 weeks before Brenda Foster's estimated date of conception. As you can see, the report shows that Robert Logan's sperm count was 0. Mr. Logan was completely sterile and could not father a child. That's the same reason Linda Logan, who was fertile, was never able to get pregnant. Melanie went pale and her eyes widened. She started to get nervous again, just like she had in my office. That's a lie. That report isn't real. You made all this up just to take Robert's child away from me. Her lawyer whispered something in her ear, trying to calm her down. Eventually, she seemed to regain her composure. Mark slid 3 more sheets across the table. The first document is the DNA analysis for Brenda Foster. The second is the DNA analysis for Gary Foster. The third report is the comparison between the two, which proves that Gary Foster is, without a doubt, Brenda Foster's father. Any questions? By then, Melanie was crying. She wasn't furious anymore, she was just shattered. She sobbed uncontrollably while her lawyer requested a short recess. After the break, my ex-wife's attorney agreed to let me have custody, but asked to set up a visitation schedule. I agreed that Melanie could see Brenda every other weekend and on 2 holidays of her choice each year. Melanie decided she wanted to see Brenda on Christmas and her birthday. She stayed silent for the rest of the hearing. I went back to work without saying a word to her, leaving Mark to finish the paperwork. I couldn't believe how easy it had all been. If Melanie had been a better partner in recent years, I would have been willing to share my fortune with her. I never denied her anything, emotionally or materially. I was willing and able to do anything for her, but somehow I never lived up to her expectations as a partner. I never understood what Robert Logan had that I didn't, or what he did for her that I couldn't. The photos Linda had left didn't show anything special about him physically. I gave Melanie copies of the photos and the results of the investigation. The report included 2 records of Robert meeting other women at a motel, on the same dates he was seeing Melanie. I hoped she enjoyed reading it. All my attempts to get an explanation from Melanie were rejected. The divorce left me with a sense of failure. I found some comfort in Brenda and Linda. Melanie moved in with Robert's mother, Brenda. Apparently, they had become friends in recent years. Unfortunately for Melanie, that didn't work out. To support herself, my ex-wife slowly started selling off the jewelry and designer clothes she'd accumulated at my expense. It took her a while to realize that her lover's mother was doing the same thing. 6 months later, Melanie moved in with her sister in Norristown. At first, Melanie picked up Brenda every weekend. Then she started calling with excuses for why she couldn't come. The calls became more frequent, and the excuses weaker. Eventually, she just stopped coming altogether. Brenda wasn't upset when her mother canceled visits, because Linda and I did everything we could to make up for it. We spent more time together and started to feel like a real family. Linda moved in with us, and shortly before Christmas, we got married. During the holidays, Melanie went on a singles cruise in the Caribbean and couldn't pick up Brenda as planned. That made everyone happy. 2 weeks later, I filed to have the custody agreement annulled, and it was approved. My company was finally sold, and we became wealthy. Linda is very happy because, for the first time in her life, she's pregnant. We'll retire before the child finishes school, but it's worth it. Life finally turned out well. Epilogue. I often think about how everything could have turned out differently. If Melanie had ever told me the truth. If we had both been honest, with ourselves, and with each other. But now that it's all behind me, I understand that some things had to happen so that others, more important things, could become possible. Melanie disappeared from our lives as quickly as she once burst into them. After she moved in with her sister, her calls became sporadic, and then stopped altogether. The last I heard, she tried to open a boutique, but the business failed. Her loneliness became her shadow, and memories her only currency. She never tried to get Brenda back. Maybe she realized she had lost not just her daughter, but also her chance at redemption. And as for us, we started to really live. Brenda is growing up smart, kind, and strong. She knows that family means the people who are there for you, who love you unconditionally. Linda has become not just a mother to her, but a friend, a guide, a source of support. And for me, she's become everything I once hoped to be for Melanie, but couldn't. Linda's pregnancy felt like a sign that life, despite everything, offers a second chance. We married quietly, without any fuss, but with immense love. And now, when I look at her, I see not just the woman who saved me, but the one I want to grow old with. Thank you for your time.